Hi everyone, in today's lore video I'm going to check out the equipment of the Death Korp of Krieg and ask how realistic it would be to use. This is a follow-on to a similar video I did where I looked at the equipment of Acadian shock troopers, and just like that video, the term realistic needs to be taken with some liberties, given this is all in a fictional universe in the distant far future. But this is still interesting as it will help to give us a bit of a sense of what it'll be like for the Death Korp of Krieg to fight in the 41st millennium. To help with this, I'll draw my experience as a former rifleman in the Australian Army, serving as a Lance Corporal in the infantry, and I did two peacekeeping deployments where I've never actually seen combat in Iraq or Afghanistan, but I did train at an elite level where I've never actually serving in the Australian Special Forces. Right, so let's start from the bottom up, looking at the Krieg's footwear. The Kriegsmen are utilising puttees, aka leg wraps. Puttees saw extensive use in the mid-19th to 20th century, and they were made up of a thin, long strip of material that was wound around the ankle to knee, serving as a cheap way to provide protection from the filth of the battlefield, and somewhat of a compression-style garment which would have supported the ankles to a small degree. I never used leg bindings, and no modern militaries do either, given the simple hassle of having to wrap them around each leg. Any riflemen remember the drama of rushing to put their boots on in the middle of the night in a defensive position when it was under attack. A key principle of a combat individual is the readiness to respond, and this applies to the most minute elements of soldiering. If you're sitting in a defensive position and wanted to air out your feet from your wet boots, you'd only air out one foot at a time, not both. And likewise, if you were cleaning your weapon, your battle buddy wouldn't be, and that way if the position was attacked, you'd be only putting on one boot, and at least have a rifle assembled between the two of you to return fire whilst you reassembled your own weapon. So principally, the puttees used by the Death Korp of Krieg are an inferior piece of equipment that would be a simple hassle to put on and take off again. Right, moving up to their trench coat style uniform. Clearly the GW design team took inspiration from World War I style uniforms, with the French Army uniform probably that it's modelled on. Clearly an old-fashioned principle, this would have provided significant comfort in the cold environment, in particular during the cold, wet, miserable conditions that was the winter of World War I, and no doubt likewise the battlefields the Death Korp of Krieg will operate in the distant far future. Again, no modern militaries really utilise trench coats these days, probably thanks to the development of better clothing technologies, not requiring multiple thick layers to be used, and also because a trench coat would significantly impede movement. Can you imagine running around with a trench coat on? It would potentially cut the range of motion of your legs as you sprint between cover, delaying movement by precious seconds whilst you're being shot at. So personally, I wouldn't go into the battlefield of the distant far future in a massive trench coat, given how cumbersome it would be. However, there is definite merit to it in the sense it could be wrapped around the body, keeping you warm on a cold winter's night. Okay, now onto their belt and harness, known as webbing, and also their backpacks. Like I explained in the Acadian video, the Death Korp of Krieg troopers appear to be carrying minimal equipment on their webbing, missing multiple water canteens, spare magazines, or multiple pouches to carry different bits of equipment in. The Death Korp do, as I said, have backpacks or rucksacks, which could carry some additional equipment. What is, however, an oddity with their backpacks is the rolled bedsheet style thing, which is on the outside of their backpack. The issue with this is pretty simple in the fact that if it's meant to be slept in or on, keeping it on the outside of your pack means if it does rain or simply is quite messy and dusty, your precious blankie will be getting very soaking wet before you go to bed in it. Every rifleman knows the importance of a dry sleeping kit, packing it deep inside their backpack in a waterproof sack if possible. Also, we can safely assume in 39,000 years' time, soldiers will be using sleeping bags, not a single sheet to sleep on. However, given the fatalistic approach to warfare the Death Korp adapt, whether their soldiers are comfortable at night probably is of little importance. Also, a minor point on their rucksacks is this chap here with his canteen or cup hanging out on the outside of his backpack. This is very poor practice and simply means when he moves around he'll be making a lot of noise and producing very poor sound discipline. Okay, now onto their rifle, bayonet, and the infamous ET or entrenching tool. Now obviously we won't comment on the realism of a las gun, However, the Death Korps have the Lucius pattern number 98 lasgun, which appears to be of similar length to the regular lasgun at about 90 centimeters long. This puts it at about 10 centimeters longer than the Steyr that I used, and 15 centimeters longer than the M4 with its buttstock detract. Now the bayonets the Death Korps are using are quite long and a pin style set on 18th century soldiers with muskets. I guess the bayonets are approximately 40 centimeters long, so giving a total reach of 1.3 meters along with their lasgun. The concept of reach is that it can create space between you and your enemy, preventing them from striking you as you plunge your bayonet into their body. Extended reach is a very sound principle in bayonet fighting. However, a 40 centimeter blade would be cumbersome to carry around. As modelled on this model here, you can see how massive and long this blade is, and it will get in the way as you sat down or were in a kneeling position, likewise if you operated in any vehicles. During my service, bayonet training was a bread and butter principle of soldiering, with us learning the on-guard position, the parry, the stab, the slash, the butt stroke and the smash. We used the M9 bayonet, which has a blade length of 18 centimeters that doubled as a general purpose knife. Given modern military rifles are semi or automatic fire, the need for a bayonet is somewhat diminished, as you can simply shoot the enemy as opposed to stabbing them. A 40 centimeter bayonet would be useful when using a slow reload musket or even a bolt action rifle, given you may be only able to pop off a couple of shots or maybe even one shot before the enemy is upon you. When combined with a semi-automatic lasgun, it's probably unnecessarily and a bit cumbersome for a 40 centimeter long bayonet, with probably a bayonet of only 18 centimeters like that's used today being preferable. Now onto the entrenching tool or E-tool. The previous comments about the bayonet were all made with a knowledge that the E-tool is often employed as a close combat weapon by the Death Korps. During my service, we weren't taught necessarily to use an E-tool as a weapon, but should be prepared to use anything as a weapon, including our fists, our rifle as a club, or a simple headbutt with your helmet on. Again, here the GW designers are taking inspiration from the horrors of the First World War, where soldiers would sharpen the edges of their E-tools and use them as a way to smash their enemy. A 1.3 meter long rifle with bayonet would be cumbersome in close quarter battle, like in a trench system, whilst an E-tool could be easily swung about both left and right and up and down. Whether it would be effective in the 41st millennium would of course depend on the enemy. With traitor humans it being very effective, but beyond this we'd struggle given our opponent's sheer bulk, skill or armour systems. But would an E-tool as a close combat weapon be plausible? Absolutely. Okay, finally let's now check out the gas masks of the Death Korps. Gas masks have of course been used since World War I, where the application of mustard and chlorine gas was employed by both sides. Another staple of infantry training was being drilled in both gas masks and protective suits as part of nuclear, biological and chemical warfare or NBC. This was done in preparation for fallout from a nuclear attack, and we were given thick gloves, charcoal-lined suits and boot covers in addition to our respirators. This was truly absolutely garbage training, given the suits were really hot in the Australian summer, and wearing a gas mask absolutely sucks. The style we used had the round discs lens, just like the Death Korps used, and these would often fog up from sweat and reduce your peripheral vision. Breathing is laboured, as you have to draw air through the filter, requiring extra effort, so any high intensity activities like conducting an attack were bloody hard work. I did a lot of training with a gas mask on as part of advanced tactical training, and even after wearing it for 4 weeks straight I wasn't truly comfortable in it. Now, the Death Korps wearing a gas mask is completely plausible given the threats of war in the 40th millennium would surely have many hazardous chemicals involved. Just picture fighting against the forces of Nurgle with swarms of flies and insects and clouds of toxic gas. However, what isn't plausible is the idea of always wearing a gas mask. A lot of fan artwork, animations and books have them always wearing their gas mask regardless of the environment which they're operating in. This is absolute bollocks. As to why you would choose to wear a mask that restricts vision, causes overheating and makes verbal communication difficult is completely ridiculous. I get that the Death Korps are meant to be a numberless autonomous army where thousands of troops are gradually poured upon the enemy, But why would you not take off your gas mask when the air is breathable so you can better fight the enemies of mankind? But look, I get that this is a fictional universe where perhaps the wearing of a gas mask is somehow wrapped into the near spiritual aspect of the Death Korp fatalistic approach to warfare, where the dehumanization of the individual troop allows them to die in their thousands, but also as a way to intimidate the enemy, given every single soldier looks exactly the same behind their gas mask. However, if I were fighting in the 41st millennium, I would always be taking off my gas mask if I was able to do so. Okay, so there you have it. My take on how realistic the Death Korp equipment is. Definitely not as realistic as the Cadian kit, but as said at the start of the video, the term realistic has to be considered in this fictional universe. So what do you think of this topic? And if you're a veteran or a serving individual of the military, let me know likewise. And if you enjoy this video and want to support me, you can do so with a like, comment, or by subscribing, joining my Patreon Platoon, or simply watching any of my other YouTube videos. And massive thanks to my current supporters. So keep your bayonet sharp, last gun oiled, faith in the Emperor strong, Patreon Platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn, Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten, Tank Commander Mitchell, Colour Sergeant DuPont, Sergeants Adal, the Colonel Merrill, Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen, Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin, Conscripts England, Gilliam, Goodwin.